This release of SolidWorks sees several new enhancements to the productivity and workflow of configurations. First is when dealing with design tables. We'll open a design table in a new window, and one of the first things that you'll notice is the Add Parameters or Configurations dialog box is immediately brought to the forefront. This avoids any confusion as to why Microsoft Excel might not be responding due to a dialog box behind it. We'll go ahead and disregard these options. The next thing you'll notice is in Microsoft Excel itself is that the design table is fully maximized. This means that we have to spend less time getting our environment set up. Also in Microsoft Excel is the introduction of data validation. You'll notice that each one of the columns contains data validation representing the relevant information. This applies to things such as configurations inside the individual parts, the suppression and resolve state of components, as well as features, and you'll also find this for the fixed relationship that you'll see on components, amongst many others. Let's take a look at how easy it is to create a new configuration using these new tools. In our case, we want to create a 4-inch version of this pneumatic cylinder with a clevis end on it. We'll go ahead and choose the relevant configurations from the drop-downs. As you can see, it's very easy to select these and make these changes. Once we close the design table, we can see that the new configuration was added with little hassle. Another new enhancement can be found in the parts themselves. Here, as we take a look at the design table for this connecting rod, we'll see the same dialog as we did before, which we'll again dismiss. You can see there's a new characteristic, in this case, called Material. This material utilizes your SolidWorks materials library. In this case, we can choose to apply several different materials to our individual parts, regardless of whatever it might be. Here, we've changed this 8-inch rod to a 1060 alloy. As we go ahead and close the design table, we'll go ahead and take a look at that configuration. Here, we can see it was listed as 8-inch none. We can see that the visual properties of it represent the changes in material, and more specifically, the material characteristic inside of the part itself has changed. The next thing you may have noticed is within the configurations themselves. Some of them have minus signs and some of them have check boxes. This represents whether or not the data for the configuration has been cached in the file. This is important for other tools such as SolidWorks Enterprise PDM and eDrawings. You'll notice that as we activate each individual configuration, the data is updated with a green check mark. If you would like to ensure that specific configurations have their caching data preserved, you can simply right mouse click and choose the Add Rebuild Save mark. This will ensure that every time the file is saved or rebuilt, this configuration is part of that process. Likewise, you can choose to do this to all the configurations inside of the file. Further, if you would like to remove the excess overhead of the cache data, in your System Options Performance tab, you will now find an option to purge the cache configuration data. Let's go ahead and close this file. The next change to configurations comes to creating exploded views, something that's unique to each configuration. Here, we want to create an exploded view to show the individual steps that are required to remove the front components of the cylinder design. We'll do this using traditional exploded view options. Here, we need to quickly adjust these fasteners. New in 2013 is the ability to add separate individual exploded views. Here, we'll right mouse click and choose to add a new exploded view, and we'll access the back of this cylinder design. We'll choose the 4 individual connecting rods and the fasteners that hold them on, as we want to show a separate step how to remove these components from our design. Now, looking at the configuration, we can see that there's 2 separate exploded views for these individual steps that are involved in this process. This gives you more flexibility when creating exploded views and working with configurations in SolidWorks 2013.